Two,
Yeah, pretty much.
one. What's up? Today we talk about a very important topic that's happening currently in Palestine as we speak. We had Joanne on the show. Ali, go ahead and let the world know what's going on.
Yeah, she's a Palestinian journalist, and it was great. She went in depth talking about the history of the Palestine conflict and the current situation, uh,
So tune
all the
in,
details from a Palestinian journalist. Check out the episode.
check it
Yeah.
out, tune in, enjoy. Just like that, it's another day, another episode, and I'm joined today by Saeed, Amir as well. Also, Joanne. Is that how you say your name?
Hi.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
I read it, but I
yeah.
didn't. I never asked how to pronounce it. That's my bad, Joanne. Welcome to the show. Let the world know who you are, what you do.
Hi everyone. Hi world. My name is Joan Muwahed. I'm a Palestinian journalist. I freelance here. I'm out in Dubai. Lived in DC for 2 years. Studied journalism, passionate about journalism, and I'm here to talk about the Palestinian cause.
Welcome to the show. It's a topic I'm very passionate about. We've done like a few Wise Guys episodes where we talked about the whole Israel-Palestinian conflict, but today we have someone who's actually from there. So let's go with, I don't know if you want to start from the very beginning, 70 years ago, or
You know what?
Ali,
I'm gonna give you a bit of a history lesson today.
Let's do it.
How's that sound?
Let's do
Does
it.
that sound
Yeah,
good?
Because
No,
not a lot of
it's like
people know what actually happened, what took
Yes.
place. You hear a lot of things
Okay.
like they found the land and all that stuff. So please go ahead.
Ali,
Yeah,
reminder
so-
that Amir is half Palestinian.
Hello, fellow Palestinian.
My bad. My grandma's Palestinian too. I'm just saying, but I don't really know a lot about.
We all have a bit of Palestinian in us, we just don't know it.
True.
Okay, so let me start with a brief history, and please cut me anytime in between if you have any questions. So let's just talk a century ago, 100 years ago, after the Ottoman Empire was defeated in World War I. It was in the 1920s. Britain took control of an area known as Palestine in 1923. Right? The land was inhabited by Jews, minority Jews, and Arabic majority. There was tensions between the two groups, and it grew to an international community standard. And it gave Britain the task of establishing a national home in Palestine for the Jewish people. So the Jews claimed it was their ancestral home. And all of this today is out of a claim, like it started with a claim. And this is the crazy part, because between the 1920s and the 40s, a number of Jews started arriving, and it started to grow. The amount of Jews in Palestine started to grow. Many of them fled from persecution in Europe because of the Holocaust after World War II. So violence between the Jews and Arabs, it grew, it rocketed. And then the British rule also, the Jews and the Arabs were fighting against the British rule as well. So by 1947, which is a staple time for the Palestinian people, the UN voted for Palestine to be split into different or separate Jewish Arab states, with Israel becoming an international city. And then later, it was a plan accepted by the Jewish leaders that they would make this a Jewish state, and they rejected the Arab side that were fighting against it. So this is when the Nakba comes, right? The Nakba, the catastrophe that happened in 1948. We call it the Nakba Palestinians. It means the catastrophe. So because there was no solution to this problem, British rulers literally left, and the Jewish leaders declared and created a state of Israel on May 15th, 1948, which is known as the Nakba. This day refers to the day that there was a mass expulsion and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from their homeland. Many Palestinians objected, and they wanted a war. And so that's when the Arab-Israeli war started. So there are multiple wars that happen in this process.
Yeah.
So we have troops from different Arab countries, from Jordan and Egypt, coming in, retaliating and creating this Arab-Israeli war. So that's what they often refer to as the Arab-Israeli war. So here, during this Nakba, we have an exodus, right? We have 750,000 Palestinians that fled or were forced to leave their homes, kicked out of their homes, similar to what's happening in Sheikh Jarrah today, which we'll get into it in a bit, just so you understand the background a bit more. And this is why they call it a Nakba. We have, as a result, we had about 7 million Palestinians who were made refugees as a direct cause of what happened during the Nakba. And that's the number that's been reported only from 2009. So we're talking probably millions more at this point. Israelis killed, murdered 15,000 people, and had included that with 70 plus massacres. More than 500 homes, cities were destroyed. All is this in aim for Israelis to Judaize the area and make it predominantly a Jewish state, right? So now Israel celebrates the day of the Nakba as their day of independence in 1948. That's when the state of Israel was created. So a few days ago, on May 15, what is it now? May 17, yeah. So 2 days ago, it marked 73 years since the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. So the fighting between the Arab nations and Israel at that point ended up in a ceasefire, right? So the year later, and Israel controlled most of the territory, and it took about 78% of historic Palestine. They refer to the original Palestinian land as historic Palestine. So Jordan ended up occupying land, which became known as the West Bank today, and Egypt occupied Gaza at some point, known as the Gaza Strip today. And then Jerusalem was divided right in the middle between the West and the East for Palestinians, West for Israelis. So that takes us to a very, in between, obviously there were a lot of issues that happened, but I'm giving you a very brief summary. In about June, they call this the 1967 war, the 6-day war, the Naksa, Harb Aylul, either or, you can refer to it either way. So I'll give you a very quick summary. Egypt, Jordan, Syria went to war with Israel. In less than a week, in 6 days, Israel captured the Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip from Egypt, the West Bank and East Jerusalem from Jordan, and the Golan Heights from Syria. So Israel tripled in size after the 6-day war. So they took over more of the Palestinian land. And obviously there was so much tensions that were happening between those Arab nations and Israel over that time. So this is why today Israel celebrated, which I'll get to later, the Jerusalem Day as the day they captured East Jerusalem, which is technically under Palestinian authority. So now we look at something simple. Let's look at, we have the West Bank and we have the Gaza Strip and we have East Jerusalem as Palestinian territories, right? It's called the Palestinian territories. The West Bank on its own is divided into 3 different areas. It's divided into A, B, and C. A is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. B is controlled by the Palestinian Authority and Israel. And C is controlled by Israel and Israeli settlements only. So we have an area that's supposed to be assigned to the Palestinian territories that is essentially not even for the Palestinian territories, because it is entirely controlled by the Israeli occupation, the Israeli occupational forces. So this on its own allows settler colonies to come in to Palestinian territories and live there. And this brings us back to
before you continue, what you're saying is basically it's completely, so the 3 parts that you said, A, B, and C, they're completely controlled by Israel.
Yes. So you are not allowed to leave you're not allowed to leave the West Bank unless you go through the checkpoints. So people living in the Palestinian territories of the West Bank cannot leave unless they go through a checkpoint to get into they call them the 48 territories, which are the original Palestinian historic lands that were taken back in 1948. أيوة بالضبط. في 48, 48 and 67 territories. 67 territories are the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem. So that's how we differentiate them.
Before we get into today's topics, I'm sure we all have a few questions about the history, right? And you might want to go. So boys, now's your chance before we get into the heated topic.
Yes. Joan, I want to ask you, so I imagine if I for example, barged into Amir's house and started staying at Amir's house, he'd call the cops and kick me out because it's not my place there, right? So why hasn't someone, or why, I feel like if one country is just sitting on another country's land and using another country's land, usually there are, the world comes to do something about it.
Pretty much.
So why hasn't something happened about it yet?
The Palestinian people have zero authority even in their own land and in their own territories. That's why nothing's been happening. So if we get into exactly what was going on in Sheikh Jarrah, it's all he said, she said. We owned land in this side of the country, when realistically, when we look at the history of things back in the Ottoman Empire, the Jews were a very small minority that did not live in that area.
It's like 2 or 3 families, correct?
No, it was larger. It was about 70 grew to 1,000 families. But if you look at the scope of Palestine, it was absolute. It's 3% of the Jews lived there. It's a known fact that the Arab majority was in Palestine back in the day, from the Ottoman Empire. So for people to come and barge and say, this is my home, get out of my home, because you know what, 100 years ago, there were 2 Jewish families that lived in that community, gives them ownership to enter the house, which makes absolute zero sense to me. So they are trying to find a legal, how do you say it? A legal, they're trying to maneuver it legally and trying to gain the rights to this land. And Palestinians are trying to receive the documents from from Jordan. It gets a bit complicated here.
Because now we have different countries.
I'll get into the legality of it, but Jordan has a say in what's happening right now, and we're waiting for some sort of movement from Jordan's end as well to prove that this land belongs to the Palestinian people.
And why has Jordan been so slow in responding? Like in general, why are the countries?
That's a hard question. Saeed. Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know.
I wanted to go back a bit. So now you were telling us the perspective of, like someone who is obviously we're seeing from the Palestinian perspective. Now, me and Amir did some research recently about the Zionist perspective. Not saying that I'm with the concept or anything. I'm just trying to put like the other side, how the mentality is.
They're thinking,
Yeah, so from what we've researched, Amira, you did the initial part of the research. So if you can mention about Herzl, I think his name is in 1897.
So Thomas Herzl, he's the father of Zionism, and he based the name off like the lovers of Zion. So you mentioned earlier there was about 3% of Jews that lived in Palestine, and they lived, like north side. There's a UN, not the UN, before the UN partition plan, there's the British Peel partition plan mandate. Also. Yeah, which shows, after the mandate, they came in and they said there was a Peel partition plan, which was a two-state, an early rendition of the two-state solution. And it showed where most of the Jewish cities were. And before that, even like Thomas Herzl, he had this idea that, there was those people who were the lovers of Zion, and that's where the name comes from. That belonged there, and that he could utilize that.
Just to clarify, it's Theodor Herzl.
Oh, Theodor, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
So Theodor Herzl.
Ali, give me a sharing screen. Let me pull them up.
In the history, so before he decided to choose Palestine, he realized, actually it wasn't exactly him, it was his other prominent Zionist leaders. They told him like, look, we could utilize the historical background of Palestine. Before that, he was pretty like
he was focused on Argentina.
Yeah, he decided to go towards Argentina and Uganda even. So it was a pretty strange move by him. And I suppose that's like the basic idea of Zionism. It's that they believe that Judaism should be a nationality and not just.
But that's the thing here. Like you can see, it's a very tactical approach by including Judaism in the concept of Zionism. Like for me, when I think about it, I completely separate the two, because basically Zionism is an ideology while Judaism is a religion. I don't know why they. Okay, no, actually, I understand why he integrated it, because it's a very smart idea of basically manipulating all the Jews to thinking that this is where they should be and we should invade this country in a colonial sense. Now, obviously, when you have this cause that is supported by your religion, you will have a further drive to take over what's promised to you.
It's more convincing.
Obviously, these are. Exactly, and it's more convincing, but it's a misunderstanding of what's actually being said. It's a misrepresentation of what's being said in the Torah.
It whitewashes the whole like movement. So the whole movement is like trying to colonize a place, but it's like, oh no, this is our promised land. It's like, even if you go through their own manifesto, it's not really focused on that either. There's a reason they keep on saying Arabs, not Palestinians too. It's because part of the manifesto is to get rid of most of the Arabs in that region.
From river to river and sea to sea.
From the river to the sea.
Although there are Arab Jews as well.
Is it not river to river? I'm pretty sure it's from Yarmouk to the Euphrates. Yeah, no, it is. Yarmouk to the Euphrates.
I don't know. The popular slogan is from the river to the sea, and people think that's extremely anti-Semitic.
No, it's I don't really care. It's Because my mom told me this once. She said their main plan is from river to river and sea to sea. So from Yarmouk River, which flows between Jordan and Palestine, to the Euphrates, and from sea to sea, which is from Mediterranean to the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Gulf, right? I think that's the main plan.
Let's do this from the rivers to the seas.
Perfect. We'll go with that.
Something that I want to really go into is the term anti-Semitic. So
yeah, man,
first
I
of all,
want
Ali,
to comment on that.
Yeah, exactly. Ali, if you can take up the definition of Semitic, what it means.
All right, let me do that real quick.
Help with the argument. Yeah, because apparently I recently figured out that Semitic is a different meaning than just Jews. You know, it's not only
Samaritan.
Jews.
Semites, Semitic people,
Semites.
or Semitic cultures was a term for an ethnic culture or racial group. The terminology is now the group of Semitic language, and then well, it's right there, right? Oh no, Saeed.
I mean, we're a podcast. Yeah, exactly.
Right. I mean, to our Spotify listeners, I'm sorry, this is kind of not your episode, but you can still listen along. I don't know, right? So that's your term. Keep going with what you were saying, Saeed.
No, because like I remember one of our previous guests even posted about it, where basically Semitic the Semites are also inclusive of the Arab communities that were in the area, because I mean in this land of Palestine, it's not only Jews and it's not only Muslims. They had so many different communities that have coexisted together even before the Ottoman. Exactly, even before the Ottoman Empire.
Oh yeah, one thing I want to highlight in Herzl's like old books, he has a book called The Old New Land, All Too New Land, and in that one he says something that's really absurd, and he not only pushes like against like having Arabs there, and he needs like the majority to be Jews, but also he's against poor people, man. Like he exclusively says that he needs to get poor people out of the region. Anyone who can't like support the nation like financially is basically not welcome, and you can see that because they have a lot of inner racism. Actually, they don't bring in Jews from like South Asia. They don't bring Jews from Africa. Yeah, so there's a lot of
against them.
Yeah, that's because they don't have the financial power.
What I know about the racism, it's very divided. So the Ethiopian Jews live in the north, I believe. I've spoken to an Ethiopian Jew before, and she told me the amount of racism and discrimination they face. So we know that they have, but so what country doesn't have discrimination against different races? So I'm not going to sit and pinpoint that, because we go back to the issue of occupation and apartheid, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I wanted to say something. When you're talking about Zionism, like Zionism started. I mean, Judaism ideology as a religion. It's a peaceful religion. So it's been taken completely out of context, and the Jewish people are suffering from the ideology of Zionism because of what they've done to their religion and pinpointing Judaism to Zionism, which, please, people, don't mix up anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, because it's totally different things. This issue is definitely not an issue of, it's not an issue of religion. This goes back to like centuries of war, like war and, you know, fighting over something that each believes it's their own. So it's not Jews and Arabs. We all we coexisted for years, not years, centuries, decades.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, and something that you mentioned also is that people like, they want to claim the lands that are, you know, from their historic, from prehistoric, not prehistoric, from historic times. And is this a legitimate claim? Well, obviously for me it's not, obviously, but like, I mean,
look, the question you ask is the question every person that's ever fought through this fight of the Palestinian-Israeli situation. I don't even want to call it conflict, because I don't feel like it's a conflict or an issue. This is the question everyone's asking, right? So who has the right to the land? And that's the common question that no one can answer. And this is why they're still at war. So I cannot answer that question. That's for sure.
I can answer that question. It's Palestinian lands. Plain and
simple.
simple.
Of course, I think
if you want to take it,
if you want it that way.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just saying you're trying to take it into a more journalistic view.
Look, obviously, I'm a Palestinian person. I believe that this is Palestinian land. Forever will be Palestinian land. Should be Palestinian land. But if I'm talking about it, like logistically, what people think, we're looking at. You have viewers from all over. Let them tune in and listen to what we're trying to say. This has been the struggle. Whose land is it? I know it's mine. people need to know it's mine too.
Which is why we're here, right? But if we're going to take it from a religion standpoint, doesn't the Torah ban Jews from ever holding a state until the Messiah comes? Isn't that a thing in the Torah?
I don't even know.
Because I'm pretty sure I read that.
I'm not Jewish, so I haven't read the Torah, and
Well,
I don't know.
I'll say it anyways. The Torah bans the state of Israel.
You don't know if you know something.
No. Because I watched a video about
Look it up, Ali. Look it up now. You have that power.
Okay. I will. Without looking up, because I've watched the video on this. Right? You have Orthodox.
Oh my God.
Listen, just listen to me.
This is part of the problem.
Hey, this is not part of the problem.
Yeah, it is part of Ali. I really
Orthodox Jews.
Ali, we're on a
in
podcast.
the UK.
You're a source, man.
Bro, it's a Vice video that's like 15 minutes, Eddie. About Orthodox Jews in the UK. I watched the whole thing.
Quote, unquote, maybe.
No, look up the part in the Torah that says this, so that we can be sure.
Like, and just to be fair, like Judaism is a pretty like complicated religion.
Yes.
It's not
in general,
very straightforward,
religion is always
all.
open to interpretation.
Yeah,
yeah,
fair enough.
exactly. Like they're always like
But
misinterpreted and like described in different ways by different religious.
But I want to talk
holy
about
men
like,
or whatever.
the anti-Semitic term just being thrown about like wildly. And I think they like to do that to an extent because, look, I think of it this way, right? Before the 1900s, they were like persecuted everywhere. No one liked them. They were a minority. The Polish people used to burn them at stakes. The Romans used to like enslave them. Everyone had there was a lot of racism happening towards the Jews then. And so they have this like trauma historically, and now you have this idea of like anti-Semitic behavior that you can just attach to it. And so now you're scared, you're a minority and worldwide, you're kind of scared. And there's this like powerful nation promising you like, oh, look, support us and you have a permanent home here. Don't feel like a victim everywhere. And, they'll keep on throwing that slogan at like the slightest inconvenience. So they remind them to be afraid. Oh, plant a tree in Israel, come send us your financial aid, whatever it may be. Support us so that we could make this a home for you. And, it's just a way
your birthright trip. Come propaganda.
Exactly.
Actually, something that we should focus on is why were they hated so much before they even moved into Palestine? Because this is like where
the Jewish people.
Before, because like the idea of Zionism was formed because of this, because like everywhere they went, they were prosecuted or people were being anti-Semitic to them because they were always a minority group and
minority groups in general. To be fair,
man, people are racist.
Yeah.
People are just
okay. So what's
kick people out for religion?
Like the Turks were.
Yeah.
Like they used to oppress different minorities. The French used to do it. The British used to do it.
This happens around the world to every minority. Group.
It's not only that, it's because the Holocaust happened because Hitler was trying to keep the Aryan race and get rid of any other race. And that includes getting rid of the Jewish people. And this is exactly why they've been extremely discriminated against. And that's something important to highlight because that's not okay whatsoever. This is exactly what's happening to us right now by the Jewish people themselves.
Oh, yeah.
I watched an interview in like the Israeli state, and they're speaking to some Israelis, and they asked them like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think about what's happening?" And some guy was like, "Oh, 300 years ago that we were here and we were being tortured. It's our right to torture them now." And it's like that's some of the dumbest ideas. Some of the people were saying some of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard because it makes no sense to look back on history and just say, "Oh, like." We were victims here. Well, now I'm gonna be a predator and I'm gonna apply the same kind of torture onto other people. It's like it's more than petty. I don't know the right word to describe it, but it's within that sphere.
Apparently, I have to spend $1 to open this page, which basically has the answer. I currently don't have the money for that yet.
Nothing can be fact checked.
But listen, in the Vice video, I'm quoting the Vice video, right?
Oh my God.
The Vice video was talking about these I think they were called ultra-Orthodox Jews, right? Who were basically saying that in the Torah, it specifically says Jews cannot hold a state or land until the rise or the coming of the Messiah.
To be honest, I've heard something similar. I'm not 100% sure about it.
Can I just intrude?
Go ahead,
real quick?
Please
so we're looking here, right here. We're looking at ultra-Orthodox Jews. If we're gonna look at extreme jihadists, they're gonna have crazy stuff to say as well. So let's just not do that.
True. But the difference is one doesn't kill people, the other pretty much bombs themselves.
I mean,
so it's like.
hold up.
Hold up.
Hold up,
You
yeah.
just made a
Yeah,
statement
got-
that makes zero sense.
Yeah.
Ali.
Alright, whatever. Fine.
Yeah, part of the
I see the heart though. I see the heart.
part of the problem is misinformation. Now that's what
Yeah.
I'm worried about the most. When I look at all my social media, I'm just like, what is real? What is not real? Because you get things from all the different sides. Some things are way more extreme than others. So that's why we like to have people like you on the show to help.
Yeah,
bring some
follow my
reality.
account. I've been covering extensively on what's happening, and I'm really,
Amazing.
really careful with
All right.
with what I post as well. And
Perfect.
I make sure
Yes,
to not
Ali
post
probably
anything
needs
wrong.
that information.
I will check. I will personally go through your account.
All right.
Post by post. Let's get into today's events. How about
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Joanna, I want to mention. So, you said earlier
Mhm.
that you described it as an apartheid state.
Apartheid.
State. Yes. Some people have been calling it that also. Is that what you think is going on in Palestine right now?
Of course, apartheid, settler colonialism, annexation, ethnic cleansing, whatever you call it. Everything's been
ethnic
happening
cleansing?
in Palestine. It's
you don't mind me
when you
asking.
deliberately try to kill a certain ethnicity, or you get rid of them, and that's exactly what they've been doing to us for the past
How'd they turn a clean word dirty? I don't understand.
73 years.
Sounds a lot nicer. Many things, yeah.
You're cleansing all the ethnicities. You are. That's exactly what.
You don't
what's
usually
happening.
use the word cleansing for your house. You use cleaning.
Yeah,
So
true.
that's usually the word
True.
used.
Right. So basically,
I mean,
ethnic cleansing is basically, as Obi-Wan Kenobi put it, you become the very thing you swore to fight, right? They become.
yeah.
I mean, Nazi Germany
I mean,
tried
in the
to
concept,
ethnically
in the
cleanse Jews.
idea of the,
Just saying.
in the idea of Zionism, yeah, okay, that's kind of what's happening.
True.
So if you want to look at the exact definition of ethnic cleansing, it's defined as the attempt to get rid of members of an unwanted ethnic group in order to establish an ethnically homogeneous geographical area, which is exactly word for word what's happening.
Wait, did you
in Palestine
Google
today.
it? You could have asked me. I would have done it for you. But yeah,
Yes,
here you
but
go.
she's a journalist and she
quick.
memorized
True.
I got it here,
it. Oh my god.
Right. So this is ethnic cleansing, which is exactly what she said. I really don't feel like it's there, right?
Is this ethnic cleansing the system?
It is.
Okay, I was reading it.
Oh, my bad. Oh, let me pull it up. Here, do it. Go ahead, say it.
Okay, for the Spotify listeners, of course. Ethnic cleansing is the systematic forced removal or extermination of ethnic, racial, and/or religious groups from a given area, often with the intent of making a region ethnically homogeneous. Sorry for the voice crack in the end.
Don't worry about it. You're good. Okay, so now that we got all of this out of the way,
ASMR.
I want to dive into the recent topics of what is going on, because I hear a lot of stuff. I'm not sure what's really going on, but all I know is there are people getting kicked out. So, Joan, take it away.
I'm dying. Okay, so the past 50 years, Israel has built settlements in the Palestinian territory. So like we said, West Bank and East Jerusalem, where more than almost 60,000 Jews now live in. They are illegal under international law, and they're creating an obstacle to peace because Israel denies, and it keeps denying the fact that it's it's being an obstacle to peace, because technically those Jews are not allowed, they're not supposed to be living in Palestinian territories, but of course they're living because they're colonizing all of Palestine. So now when we go to Sheikh Jarrah and the movement that came with that, a brief history on Sheikh Jarrah. It's home to 3,000 Palestinians in East Jerusalem, located in East Jerusalem. All the people that are there right now are refugees that were ethnically cleansed from their homes in other parts of historic Palestine. So in 1948, when they left, when those people got expelled from their homes, they all moved to this part of Palestine, East Jerusalem, Sheikh Jarrah in particular, we're speaking.
Right there.
So 3,000 people, 3,000 refugees live there right now, right? So after an agreement was reached by Jordan and the UNRWA, which is the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, in the 50s, 28 Palestinian families who fled from those different areas that they were expelled in back in 1948 were relocated to this neighborhood, the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. So the refugees were moved into houses, and this land was once leased by two small Jewish communities who fled during the Nakba as well in 1948. Now, the tricky part is that Palestinian families were granted funds to build homes, provided that they renounced the refugee status to UNRWA, so which they did. And when they did, they became owners of the land. So this is where I'm saying we need legal documents from Jordan saying that this is our land. This is what we're waiting on. So later, Jewish settlers come in, which is right now, come in and try to put in a court order claiming that this is rightfully their land because Jewish communities lived there at some point. So that's basically like historically what's happening. Now,
and those
when
people
we're talking
who are trying to take back those, the Jewish people that are trying to take these homes, were their families or their ancestors, those families that left that area, or just random Jews that are coming in?
I'm pretty sure it's not, but I cannot
Okay.
say it is. So
Even so, like, there's no historical evidence, there's no contracts, there's nothing to back that up. And even if there were, you're not supposed to just like wipe out the people that live there.
No, I know. I'm just saying this is more, more evidence for the Palestinian side, saying that people who have their families have never even been on this land, or their ancestors have never been on this part of Palestine, saying that they want this land and saying it's historically theirs. You can't just completely claim out of nowhere like this whole thing is mine, and it doesn't work that way. Because if this is how, if you really want to think about it, if the Jews just want to say like historically this is our land, then every indigenous community that's ever existed will kick out, there's going to be, it will basically kick out everyone. Native Americans will kick out everyone from the US. But yeah, that's the only example I can think of right now. But I guess you get the point.
So let's paint a picture, right? Ali, you live in LA, right? Is that where you live? Yeah, you live in LA. You grew up in this house with your family. How old are you?
23.
So 23-year-old Ali living in his LA home for the past 23 years. He has his toys, he has his memories on the wall, he has his posters, whatever it is. As a kid, you grew up, you left those stuff around, right?
He still has his toys.
Your dad lived there all his life, family was around. Then one day, some person walks into your backyard and tells you, this is not your house. If we are not going to seal it, someone else will. Which brings back to the point of Israel's government from the 70s trying to work to implement a demographic balance in Jerusalem. They want a 70-30 ratio to limit Palestinian population in the city. So that makes, they want the city to be less than 30% Palestinian of Jerusalem. So this has been executed by a number of policies, like land confiscation, annexation, displacement, colonization of the Palestinian neighborhoods. And if you go to Palestine and you drive through the mountains of the West Bank, you always see the settlements at the top of the mountains, and they're all lit, and they have perfect streets, and they have perfect lights, and perfect electricity, and perfect water. Everything in their settlements are perfect. And then you literally go a street down, and it's complete, like an utter disaster. So we can always identify as Palestinians, if you enter the Palestinian land, you can identify which areas are settler colonies. So many families ended up appealing to the court. They've been fighting this, but there's no chance at overturning the rule. It's not happening. And so right now, after all the escalations that happened, at the end, what ended up happening is that the Israeli court decided that they're going to postpone this for 30 more days. So they're trying to silence the situation by, it's this, the whole thing got brought up, and now they're just shutting us up by postponing it, and this is not going to shut us up. And that's what they do.
And this case is being directly dealt by the Israeli Supreme Court, where it's only Israelis are in that court, and there's representation of Palestinians. Okay, that's just just asking about that.
It's as
so
though
Palestinians don't have a chance.
Basically, it's imagine Saeed, if I'm like I beat you up and I go to court and it's all your brothers there. Like obviously, like that's. Even if they're super
like, who's the judge? My uncle, who's the lawyer? My brother.
Right, who's my lawyer? Oh, that's my other brother. Like, what?
Don't worry, he will represent you very well. Don't worry.
Sometimes, though, there are cruelties that can't be forgiven, that surpass everything, like bombing families, the amount of kids that have been dying, all the souls that have been lost this past couple of weeks. It's not right, and it should stop. Pretty much. Is it still going? What's going on, or has it been on pause, or what's going on currently?
So right after this whole issue with Sheikh Jarrah happened, this whole movement got birthed, right? We have two important, very prominent people that spoke up so much during this time, which is Mona al-Kurd and Muhammad al-Kurd. They're two siblings they're a Kurd family. If you've watched Al Jazeera or anything, they've been extensively covering the topic. They've been using their social media platforms, hashtagging Save Sheikh Jarrah, from August, I would say. I got on a Clubhouse call sometime in March. It's May now, so that was two months ago, right? Yeah, I got on a Clubhouse call, and I personally heard Mona talking, and the group's name was "Please Help Save My Neighborhood." It was in Arabic, so I went in, I tuned in, I was listening in, and she was talking about the fact that they're about to face like they're going to move them out of their houses, and they've been fighting so hard not to. Let me tell you, and let me remind you, if you didn't know, if you knew, there were 28 families at the beginning when they first moved into this neighborhood. At least, I don't want to give the wrong number, but let me say at least 5 families or 6 families got kicked out in 2009. So they're continuing the ethnic cleansing right now. 7 families, apologies. So they're continuing the ethnic cleansing now. And so right now, the reason why this all took such a big blow in this current time, because I personally was listening to that call then, and I went and I couldn't sleep at night. So I went and I did like an infographic. I wanted to post on my social media. I wanted people to get talking about this because she was encouraging English speakers to do so. Hence why I'm doing what I'm doing today. And so when I posted the infographic, it only gained traction right now, which is May, 2 months later. Why is that? Because on Monday, they were having a court appeal to let them leave the house. And that's when that got postponed. So after this whole Sheikh Jarrah issue happened, what ends up happening? This issue moves from East Jerusalem inside the neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah to Al-Aqsa compound, which is a very holy site in Islam. And this is where things start really taking off. Have you guys been seeing the videos? I assume you have, right?
Yep, yeah. Everything. But in case people who are watching, they haven't, I insist that you explain.
Yeah, so obviously we see videos circulating of the IOF, the Israeli Occupational Forces, coming into homes, raiding them. That's in the Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood. And then after that, it moves into Jerusalem, where Palestinians basically got attacked on the 27th day of Ramadan. So that's a very, very holy day for Muslims. Anyway, it's the most important day to pray. They were praying peacefully. Worshippers were praying. They got stun grenades thrown at them, sound bombs, rubber bullets. It was an outright war on the field. It was a war. And it was just so sad to see, as a Palestinian, this place that's so holy, third holiest site ever, is completely in utter ruins. The mosques were like getting tarnished. Everything was, it just looked like an absolute, mess. And funny enough, when that happened, a day or two later, there was something called Jerusalem Day that Jewish people celebrate. What is Jerusalem Day, you may ask? It marks Israel's capture of East Jerusalem in 1967. So remember when I told you the story of a 6-day war happening? They ended up capturing East Jerusalem and the West Bank, right? So they celebrate this year, every year, for capturing East Jerusalem, which Palestine still claims to be their land. So every year, Israelis, what do they do on this day? They march through the streets of Jerusalem, through the old city of Jerusalem, and they precisely march through the Muslim quarters, because it's divided into, I think, 3 quarters. And they sing anti-Palestine chants, and they deliberately agitate the Palestinian people, like, hey, I stole your land in 1967. We are celebrating that we got the East Jerusalem land then, that they occupy it now. So they basically that day they had vowed that they're going to break into Al-Aqsa Mosque. So just FYI, Jews are not allowed inside Al-Aqsa Mosque. This is a holy site. This is only for Muslims to come in and pray, right?
Wait, who vowed? Was it the people or the government?
The people. The people. Let's say Jewish settlers are gonna attack the Aqsa Mosque. That's exactly what happened.
This is them organizing between each other.
Them organizing. Yeah. Obviously, Palestinians know of the attack that's going to happen, knowing that that day is coming. So what did they choose to do? They directly went around Al-Aqsa Mosque. They put barricades, in case you didn't see any of those videos. They put barricades against the doors of the Aqsa Mosque. They put barricades around the Dome of the Rock. And if you go around, you see the Israeli propaganda side that I've been watching. You see this, I don't even want to mention his name because I don't want to make him more popular. This guy that's been very popular from the other side, that's been posting videos that are completely whatever. Anyway, so he takes videos or posts videos of how Palestinians are attacking the IOF with rocks. So you find rocks all around the Aqsa Mosque because they're in preparation for this attack that's coming from the Jewish settlers during Jerusalem Day. So they obviously prepare everything around. In the morning, the Israeli military or the Israeli forces end up attacking the Palestinian worshippers again in the mosque. So instead of the Israeli settlers coming in, they blocked them from entering, but they needed to protect them, so they attacked the Palestinian worshippers instead. There are videos that also circulated of Israeli settlers literally trying to break down the barriers to enter the Aqsa Mosque. This is illegal, illegal under international and human law. So this is not something they're able to do. So this is why the IWF was stopping them from entering. But it said they attacked the worshippers. I don't know if you've seen this very, very viral video that went around of all the Jewish, I don't want to say Jewish, sorry, the Israeli settlers that were chanting, I don't know, I don't want to say anything wrong, but I don't know if it was death to Arabs or we took them or something along those lines. It was something very, very, very like cruel. Yeah. And in the background, you see a fire burning. So it's just agitating and extremely vile and cruel to even have people sitting and singing and celebrating their national holiday, or whatever holiday this is, what their national day, which is Jerusalem Day.
What nation?
While there's literally a war happening in the back. So
now question. So I heard a report that basically was talking about this specific event, that the wall that they were celebrating in front of is a very long, very high wall. And the camera angle, that was the photo that was taken, might have been misleading by saying that that the people could not actually see the fire because the wall is so high and they're behind the wall. And the camera angle was probably a bit higher than where the people were standing, because you can actually see the people are under the camera. So I just want to know if what do you think about this report?
Okay. So what I saw as well from the other side is that they were saying, of course, we were not celebrating the burning of the Aqsa compound. That's not what we were doing. What they're claiming is, you know what? It was the Palestinian people that actually sha'alul shajara. They're the ones that burnt the tree because they were firing fireworks. And to me, that is absolute bullshit, because that is not at all what the point of the video is. I don't care if you see fire. Something captured you chanting while a fire was in the background. I don't care about that.
I mean,
what I care about is you sitting and yelling, and you're sitting and yelling and chanting for, I can't even remember what it was, but there was a specific chant that was so disgusting to even say. And there was a war happening in the background, regardless of who lit up what tree or what part started what. We keep forgetting that people come into the context of this whole Palestine-Israel story, and they always come into, Hamas attacked, Palestine attacked, this happened, that happened. No, look at the history. This has been 73 years of extreme occupation and apartheid. Like, this isn't normal behavior. Obviously, we're going to be enraged, and we're going to be passionate about wanting to.
It's not only the history. It's not only the history. It's just look at who provokes these actions, who's starting them. Like, just look at who's creating these actions first, and then Hamas reacts. Recently, I haven't seen Hamas honestly provoking, like doing the initial action. They're not attacking first. They're just reacting. And to be honest, like I don't really support those reactions, because they don't do much.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. When we look at everything that happened and broke out in Jerusalem, this was a very big deal for the Palestinians. Like, do not enter Al-Aqsa, do not.
And sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make clear, the people who are starting the provocations, I didn't mean the Palestinians. It's the Israelis. That's what I was trying to say.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, got you. What's it called? Oh my gosh, this is just
it's overwhelming. I understand.
I need to cool down.
It is overwhelming.
It is.
Yes. I'm so tired of all this war that's going on.
I know.
To be honest,
I wanted to add to that. Because of everything that broke down on Al-Aqsa, what ends up happening is Hamas retaliates. But when the media and other people wanna, cover the story, or Israelis, they wanna cover the story, they focus on Hamas first attacked Israel. But man, we have to look at the backstory. What's happened in Jerusalem? What happened in Sheikh Jarrah? What happened 100 years ago? It goes way back to times that we were not there for. So learn it, understand it, and then come and tell me Hamas attacked first and why they attacked first. Ask why, always. Context is key in this. Context.
Unfortunately, Ukhti, the world has turned a blind eye to Muslims. I'll say it.
Well, it's not just Muslims. There are people of all faiths living in Palestine. I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's. But I mean, Christians were attacked in Easter as well in one of their churches. So I mean, this has been a problem for literally every single religion, and it's absolutely disgusting and horrific. And now what's happening as a cause of all of Sheikh Jarrah issue is now an outright war between Israel and Gaza, and more than 100 people are dead in Gaza, and there are 10 dead in Israel. Well, we're talking about an elephant and an ant situation. Who's the elephant in this equation?
Yeah.
And
even if we I just want to say, even if we somehow forget about Sheikh Jarrah for a moment, like the amount of systematic injustice that like Palestinians have to go through in terms of trade, in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, in terms of what rights they have, what roads they can drive on, how much they're just being suffocated, so that if they don't ethnically cleanse them, they're trying to get them out, leave, they're trying to make it hard to stay.
Like what's happening in Gaza right now. They're literally in open air prison. They're not allowed to trade, leave. They're not allowed to leave Gaza. They're stuck inside. They can't even leave if they want to flee. They're killing every single Gazan person in there before they get a chance to get out. It's impossible. You can't enter Gaza. You can't leave Gaza. You don't have electricity. You don't have water. Everything's cut out from you. Cut from the borders of Egypt. Cut from the borders of 48 territories, Israel. It's an open air prison. They're just getting bombed and they're dying. That's it. That's all they have.
On average, they get 4 hours of electricity in Gaza a day. 4 hours on average.
Not even.
Can you guys live without an hour, man, of electricity? Like, that's hard on its own. Imagine 4 hours throughout the whole day.
Something that absolutely broke my heart the other day. I've been spending a lot of my times on live streams because I want to be at the scene. I don't want to just be, saying bullshit from other organizations. I wanted to make sure I'm literally witnessing something and writing it on my page. And so I was on one of those live streams, and it was just when the whole thing happened with Jerusalem, and then the attack started from Hamas to Israel. And this lady goes on and she goes, my friend, I just had a call with my friend. So this lady lived in Jerusalem and her friend lives in Gaza. So she's like, I called my friend in Gaza and I was like, are you guys okay? And then she said, yes, we're okay. We're just really happy that we could take the weight off everyone in Jerusalem for a bit and attention can be on Gaza. So, I mean, that speaks volumes, no?
Sorry.
It does.
I mean, it's just like, okay, I'll carry the backpack for you for a bit. Like, just live for a bit and then we'll exchange it later. You know what I mean? This is what it's come to.
People don't have to go through that. Yeah.
No, of course they don't.
2021.
That's heavy.
Yeah. I mean, where we see the prosecution happening in like all over the world to Muslims. I mean, we had a journalist from China telling us about what happened to the Uyghurs, and then we see this trend of Muslims being prosecuted around the world, and especially with Palestine. I mean, these things have been going on for decades. So I want to know from the people in Gaza and Palestine, what do they want?
What do they what? Sorry, you cut up a bit.
Sorry if I cut up. What do they want? Like what kind of future do they want for themselves, the people in Palestine?
I mean, they want to live normal.
I think Ali, what you're trying to say is like, what action do you want to happen right now?
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Like how can we change the scenario? Yeah.
So what kind of response would a system right now?
Okay, I give you two answers to that. You have one part of the people that say Hamas retaliates, keep going until we gain some sort of recognition or right or we can have access to a proper land. And then you have the other side that says my family's dying. All 9 of my family members are dead, and only a 4-month-old survived one of those airstrikes. So you have those two oppositions, like the people that want to keep retaliating and the people that want peace, and that's everywhere. That's in Israel, that's in Palestine, that's in Gaza, that's in West Bank, that's in East Jerusalem, it's everywhere. So there's always two sides to it. A lot of people that are pro-striking Israel are there because they need their rights back, and years of prosecution that's been and massacres that's happened to Palestinians, and this is where it comes from. It doesn't come from because we want to kill Israeli kids and civilians. No, that's not where it comes from. It comes from we are oppressed and we want to unoppress ourselves.
It's a resistance force.
It is.
So it's similar to basically what Hezbollah used to be back in during the Civil War and like end of Civil War. Not really now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's a lot to take in, honestly, but I'm pretty sure people are still gonna try and misrepresent everything we say in this video, right? I might have said a bunch of shit in the start. I was a little heated. I'll take full responsibility for that. But everything this woman is saying is pretty much, is weighted in gold. I tried to translate the Arabic saying of kalam min dhahab, right? She is putting it in pure fact. It's undeniable. And like when I've watched a bunch of like arguments about this online, right, about this whole situation, and whenever the Muslim, right, let's say the guy with the beard or the Muslim or whatever you want to see him as, right, comes with facts, straight facts, it's always but this happened, but that it's a bunch of misdirections to a bigger and severe cause, right? What I'm happy and proud to see is, even though Arab governments are not taking up arms because they're trying to maintain the peace and all this political stuff that's going on, the society of every Arab nation has gone up, right? You see protests in Saudi Arabia. I think that, I don't know about Saudi Arabia if there is, but there was definitely
New
one
York
in Kuwait,
and Tunis,
New York, London, Tunis, Egypt, Algeria, Morocco, Iraq. You have in it's gone for 73 years, right? 73 years of this being an issue, of Palestinians being kicked out. If they don't comply, they get killed, bombed, airstriked, food and water is probably cut off, they shut the internet on them, it's sad to see. It really is, and it pisses me off. That's why I really don't, right? I don't know what to say. Like, it's crazy, and this is happening.
By the way, with the news coverage constantly being cut out, how is information being spread
most importantly, what recently happened, by the way, this is still going on. There's no ceasefire. They're still firing rockets back and forth at each other.
Okay.
I wanted to mention two important things before we close off. One, Israel has something called the Iron Dome. What does the Iron Dome do? It's first of all backed by the US, obviously US defense system. $3.8 billion from US taxes, more actually, probably more, but that's the amount they put on media, is gone right to Israel's pockets for this purpose, this exact purpose. And this is why the US has a very big part in what's going on right now. And
this is where my tax money is going?
Yes, that's
exactly where your tax money is going. That's why I refuse to pay any show taxes for the US, because this show is purely Kuwaiti. US,
okay.
Not taking any of my tax money. Right.
And so they have iron domes. And what do those iron domes do? Whenever Hamas is firing rockets at Israel, which is firing hundreds at a time, we're not denying that, this iron dome literally strikes out every single one of those rockets. Hence why when you look at the Israeli sky,
and stuff.
It looks like it's fireworks happening in the sky. But obviously vice versa, we have no protection. Israel, on the other hand, has shelters. I looked at this girl on TikTok that's showing us her shelter. Look at my shelter. You close the door, they have a big door. It looks like a beautifully sophisticated area to sit and shelter in, because they cry because of the sound of the bombs in there. But
what a strange thing to flex
on the street. It would, and then she shows us the metal thing. She closes the metal door, the window. It's the window and the door, and then they have two doors after that. That's your shelter. So I mean, they have shelters, they have iron domes. Gaza has neither.
They have rocks. And
Gaza,
sticks.
what Gaza gets is usually a plane that comes through right before they strike them. Or that's how it was before. I heard that it's not happening anymore. Before they strike or bomb a certain building, they have a plane or helicopter or whatever fly up, and they drop papers. And when you pick up the paper, it says this building is gonna get bombed. Evacuate. To be fair, let's be fair, right? They tell you before.
This is cartoonish.
They tell you before they want to kill you. This is how it happened in 2006 in Lebanon as well. People that I've known that went through that war were there. So they drop.
I was there,
they tell you leave.
I was there.
That didn't happen.
I was there. That happens sometimes.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah. A lot of people were lost in their homes, and
And there's another mechanism they call roof knocking, where they drop a tiny bomb. I don't know what it was, but like, I don't know if you've seen it. It's like a tiny bomb. It gives like an alarm. You have a minute to evacuate before they burn the building. They demolish the building. Literally, you see the video within a minute. The video. You have that pump. Okay, it's by the way very loud. It's not it's a semi bomb that's been dropped at the roof, and then obviously people have to flee. A minute later, the bomb strikes it. So this is their way of, okay, I'm giving. I told the Palestinian people to leave because we don't want to kill the Palestinian people. So leave. If they didn't leave, it's on their own it's their own will.
How is this an actual legitimate reasoning for that can be upheld in court when you're still bombing a house, you're still bombing a place and you're causing danger, and it's not like the bomb just destroys the house by itself, it destroys the surrounding area. So if you don't get out in time, you can still die. I mean, how
It
is
isn't,
this
right?
legitimate?
It's considered
Really
a crime.
cartoonish. It's very cartoonish, and it's just
Yeah, but like,
annoying
how
to
is this
hear.
upheld in court? Like, legally, how can you actually claim this is something they can defend for the Israelis? I mean,
mechanism. The defending mechanism, quote unquote.
a defensive
do Israelis-
mechanism. I mean, no, that's the reasoning doesn't make sense because, okay, so something that a video that, a recent target of theirs that was recent in Gaza was the journalist building for the AP.
Yes.
I don't know what's it called. What's the
AP
company
and
called?
Al Jazeera, Associated Press and Al
Exactly.
Jazeera, both got targeted.
Yeah, and they claimed that it had Hamas targets in it. I mean,
Yes.
it's owned by journalist companies. I'm pretty sure they would know if there was terrorists in the same building as them. But
So
no,
actually,
instead,
that was a very, very, very big deal. What happened there? That if anything gained more recognition, sided more people on our side. Their
Definitely.
attack on Al Jazeera building, the Jazeera and the AP building, those journalists have been there for years in Gaza. The fact that they attacked it means that the world is going to hear less about what's happening in Gaza, and that's the statement that was released by the CEO of AP. He was horrified and mortified, according to his words, shocked that this happened to them. So they obviously gave them a call ahead of time, told them they're going to strike them. They told them, can you just give us a few more minutes to gather our equipment? And they said no. And they all evacuated on time and they bombed the thing.
I saw the video of the guy literally yelling like, just give us 5 more minutes, we still have our equipment. And then they just like close it on him. They don't even say no. Sometimes they just go like, right, and they just shut it. Well, guys,
Now in court, like based on like international law and humanitarian law, like they've broken like over 100 laws, right? Like, so I want to ask you a question, Joanne.
Yes.
How do they what do they do when they break those laws? Like, how do they evaluate them?
how do they get away with it, basically?
Yeah, like how do they know that they've broken those laws? How does the UN know they've broken those laws, but then nothing happens? How does that work?
The Prime Minister of Israel is on a lot of charges of bribery and fraud right now, and he's constantly being re-elected. So that should answer it itself.
Democracy is dead.
Also, USA is their best friend.
True.
As well.
True.
All right.
USA, Britain,
We are-
India.
By the way, we are just over our timestamp, right?
Yes.
So let's do a closing remark. Obviously, this is something that's been going on. I'll say it again, for 73 years, right? I don't even call it Israel. This is Palestine. It'll remain Palestine until the day I die, right? And I guess that's my closing remark. Thank you very much for
Hopefully
watching
beyond
another
that
episode.
also.
Right?
Hopefully
you.
beyond your dad.
Before that,
Yes.
Joanne, what is
Yeah.
the closing statement from you?
Yeah, let's have a closing statement from you, honestly. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Putting me under the spot.
Yes.
Okay, so for the first time ever, I feel like I can speak up to something in with a full heart, right? Like this is me. This
Yep.
is my history. This is my dad's history. My mom, my family. I can speak up to something, and I'm so glad that I'm able to get on this and educate whoever's listening and learn and talk back and forth with you guys. What I ask from everybody listening to this podcast today or watching it, don't stop the movement. Starting a movement does not mean you got an answer that you wanted. Posting one post does not mean you. Please try to further help. If you post, I swear to God, your posts make a difference. Trust me, your posts make a difference. The fact that Benjamin Netanyahu tweeted something, he said in a speech that the Twitter enemies, and he mentioned that there are Twitter enemies. explains extremely why we should keep posting. Our voices are important. They are reaching big level, the US, in Congress, in the UK, all the protests happening, everything going on in every country. This is because every single one of you who have been proactively tweeting and posting on Instagram and on Facebook and bombarding every other person that goes against it is exactly why we are where we are today. Our voices have not been heard for years. Guys, they've been suppressed, censored, put down. No one wants to hear my story. No one wants to. Today, for the first time, someone wants to hear my story. So I thank you for that.
We
thank you, Joan. Obviously, thank you, Joan, for coming on today's episode. We really do appreciate you for giving us this like time and educating us and whoever watches this video. Special thanks to everyone who's watching this video. Thank you for watching another episode of A to the Show. If you guys learned anything, right?
If you learned something new,
yeah, like, subscribe, share. We'll leave a link to Joan's social medias where you can learn everything about everything that's going on over there. The truth, the full honest truth, which is what the world needs right now. Please do follow her. We'll leave a link to that in the description below. Thank you to Saeed and Amir for coming and joining us on today's topic. Peace, love, happiness, right? And Quran chapter 17, 6. See you.